Welcome, everybody. Good morning on this beautiful Thursday. Thank you for being here. My name is Katie Earle, and I'm the coordinator of the University Express program. And I work for the Erie County Department of Senior Services, just like our instructor here today, Ryan Gadzo. We appreciate him. Before we jump into his presentation, we do have some new folks here today, so I'll go over some housekeeping things. First thing I'll let you know is we are recording this session right now, and I'll try to post it online at a later date. Second thing, what you've probably noticed is you are muted and there's no video of yourself showing. Well, you haven't done anything wrong. That's just the settings of our program here. You also might think you're the only people in here with us, but I promise you there are others. It's just that Ryan and I are the only ones that can see the complete list of attendees. So as we go through his presentation, please feel free to send your questions our way, any comments you have. We'll be using our Q&A panel to communicate with you today. So depending on your device, when you joined, it likely popped up on the right side of your screen. Just have to expand it, and then you'll see the text box. Send your questions to me, and don't forget to click send, or else it's just going to be hanging out in there. If you don't see that, if you poke or touch your screen, at the bottom right-hand side, you should see a square with a question mark that says Q&A. That should be your panel. And if that's not there, poke or touch your screen, you'll see a circle with 3 dots. Then you should have the option. So play around with it. We hope you participate because I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there. I know I have a lot, but I'm excited to get started here. So I want to thank the sponsors of our program, which is our Department of Senior Services, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, Excelsior Orthopedics, and Wegmans, because they make the program possible. And we want to let you know, do not hesitate to call us at Senior Services if you have any questions about programs or services or benefits for yourself or your loved one. We're at 858-8526. I already see a go Bills. All right, it's going to be a good day. So Ryan Gadzo currently serves as the research analyst for our Department of Senior Services. He has both a bachelor's and master's degree from Buffalo State College in political science and public administration, respectively. Ryan is a fantasy sports enthusiast and Bills season ticket holder for over 5 years. He will combine his football knowledge and love of analysis in this engaging presentation. I'm going to toss it over to Ryan.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Earle. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. For those of you attending one of my sessions for the first time, welcome. For those of you who might have attended my Fantasy Sports 101, welcome back. Good to see you again. So today I'm pretty much going to talk about, I'm hoping to build off Ms. Teresa Wyatter, who's also a presenter in our program's Football 101. Today we're going to talk about some of the offensive concepts we're seeing in football today. I know for a lot of you, you've seen football evolve over the years from a very run-centric game to now where we see it way more wide open. So I'm hoping to explain some of the concepts we're seeing with offenses nowadays. If you do have questions about defense or you have questions about what we're talking about, like Katie said, please feel free to throw your questions in the Q&A, and I will do my best to answer them. So the first offense we're going to talk about today is the West Coast offense. The West Coast offense is characterized by short horizontal passing routes in lieu of running plays to really stretch the defense out from sideline to sideline, opening up potential for long runs and passes due to the lanes that are available. With the defense stretched out, like I said, from sideline to sideline, the offense is free to focus on the remaining plays on longer throws of often 14 yards or more, or mid to long rushes. Originally, the offense used what they call split backs, which would mean 2 running backs in the backfield with the quarterback either next to them or behind them. Some people might call that the wishbone formation in the backfield. Giving an uneven alignment in which 5 players were on one side of the ball, which meaning from the center to the right or from the center to the left, and 4 players aligned on the other side. This imbalance forced conventional defenses, which are your base defenses, your 4-3, which means 4 down linemen and 3 linebackers, or a 3-4, which means 3 down linemen or 4 linebackers, to have to shift the strength and weak side of that defense. The majority of West Coast routes in terms of the passing game are within 15 yards of the line of scrimmage. The quarterback uses 3 and 5 steps drops, which are very quick sets. It's 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before they're looking to throw the ball in that drop. By doing so, it takes place of the running game, so to speak, and really makes the opposing defense commit to solely focusing how to stop those intermediate routes. Contrary to popular belief, the offense does use the 7-step drop for shallow crosses, deep ins, and comebacks. Usually those routes usually find themselves in between the 15 and 25-yard mark in that intermediate to longer range. The West Coast offense also requires a quarterback who throws extremely accurately, often blindly, because a lot of these routes are very much based on timing and throwing to an area, not waiting for a receiver to be open to throw to them in that capacity. So with the West Coast offense, it's really predicated on timing of routes and making sure that the ball is coming out in these tight windows and lanes that are forming by stretching that defense. One quarterback that I could say in the recent past that was very, very good at this, to me, I would say was Alex Smith of the Kansas City Chiefs and formerly of the San Francisco 49ers. Not a huge arm guy, but always threw in rhythm, always threw on time, was really able to work with Andy Reid, especially in that Kansas City Chiefs offense when he was there, to really start working on those intermediate quick passes to really get the ball moving downfield. What's going on? Okay, there we go. Next slide. So these are just a few different. So on the left-hand side, that's the way the West Coast offense originally looked. You see that you have a running back and a wide receiver on one side of the ball, and then on the other side of the ball, you have your second wide receiver, a tight end, and then a fullback. To our right, we see the different formations as it's evolved over the years for the West Coast offense. If you see they like Trey right and Trey left, that's saying that you have 3 receivers to one side or 3 receivers to the next side. When you add different verbiage in there, when you say like Trey right ace or Trey left ace, you see that some of the positions switch spots due to the routes that they're running. You see that Trey right far has people more spaced out. Trey right near has them closer to the line. And you can see that a lot of the times in this offense, the quarterback is taking the snap from under center, not really in shotgun. The next offense we're going to talk about, which is, oh, go ahead.
We have actually one thing. So thank you for being descriptive, because we do have at least 2 people who are calling in, so I'm sure they appreciate that. And we have a question. Is there a reason for the name West Coast offense?
I believe that the West Coast offense came when, I want to say, I might be wrong on this, when Bill Walsh created it. And it was created when he was, I want to say was with the San Francisco 49ers, but I might be incorrect on that. It was just kind of the way it was predicated. The reason why they call it the West Coast offense is because it originated on the West Coast of the country. A lot of the teams in the East were still sticking to the conventional running attack with some passing integrated into it. The West Coast offense really kind of started to spread everything out, like it said, and it originated on the West Coast of the United States. So that's kind of how we got to that name of the West Coast offense. Katie, do we have any more questions on that?
Nope, not that I'm seeing. Oh, actually, what is the X, Y, and Z in the diagram?
Okay, so those letters are, for the way these plays are set up, those letters represent a specific person or route in that formation. So on like the football broadcast, you'll hear how this receiver is an X receiver or a Y receiver or a Z receiver, and each of those different quote unquote letter descriptions for that receiver kind of describe what they do in the offense. And depending on where they line up, that also dictates what they're doing. Like you can see like the X and the Z on a lot of the formations are on the outside of the formation. The reason for that is usually like your X receiver is your number 1 receiver. He's usually your downfield threat. He's probably your best route runner. He's usually the matchup, quote unquote, nightmare for the defense. Your Z receiver, can be a couple different things. Your Z receiver could be someone who is more of a intermediate pass catcher. In the terms of like the Bills offense, if we're going to put letters with people, Stephon Diggs would be your X because he's your number one receiver. He's your bona fide threat. John Brown, who's your speed receiver, also a great route runner, but he's mostly known for his speed ability. That would be your Z. And then Cole Beasley, in looking at this, he would be your F. And then your tight end would be your Y based on the way these formations are set up with being so close to the line. There doesn't necessarily have to be a tight end in the West Coast offense. It could be a four wide receiver set as well, which then you would see that Y become Gabriel Davis or Isaiah McKenzie or any of those other wide receivers after the top three of the Bills.
Thank you. I'm seeing one more question, then we can move on. What is Trey in the name?
Okay, so Trey means three. So if you could look when that Trey, as you look at how it goes right, you have the three receivers or the two receivers in the tight end to the right. And then on Trey left, you see that there's three wide receivers or eligible receivers, could be a tight end as well, to the left of the formation. So the Trey is just is just signifying how many players are going to that side of the field. Sometimes it's a different formation, but you'll hear things called trips. Trips is a similar formation, trips right, trips left. Trips really signifies the formation where you have one wide receiver and then two wide receivers right behind them, tightly stacked on one side of the formation and the other. What that does is by having those wide receivers stacked on top of each other, it makes the defense have to cover three receivers in a small amount of space, which especially in nowadays game, you hear that they use rubs in route concepts and they use pick plays. What these rubs and pick plays do is when you have a trips formation like that, you may have a receiver run a slant in and you may have a receiver run a slant out. What that does is it makes those two cornerbacks, if they're in man offense, they might have to pass each other and have to run around each other, causing that defender to give up ground, which makes the receiver open. In zone formation, when those wide receivers run those routes, they have to have very good communication on the defensive side of the ball, because if you're covering a zone, you need to let your defender know if you're covering a flat or you're in a cover two sink type thing where you're trying to stop the middle of the field in passing lanes. You have to make sure that everyone is accountable for the man going to their area. So with the Trey and the trip setup, it's just kind of verbiage letting you know where things are going in the formation. All right, we're going to go to the next slide. And if you have more questions about the West Coast offense, we can come back at the end. The next offense that we're really seeing is what they call the air raid offense. This is a offense that you've seen a lot over the last 3 or 4 years, really being integrated into the NFL. The air raid offense is a system designed out of shotgun formation in which you have 4 wide receivers and 1 running back. The formations are a variation of the run and shoot offense, or the run and gun, with 2 outside receivers and 2 inside slot receivers. The offense uses, like I said, trips formations, featuring 3 wide receivers on one side of the field and 1 lone receiver on the other side of the field. As many as 65 to 75% of the calls during NFL season result in a passing play in this offense. The QB has the freedom to audible to any play based on what the defense is showing him at the line of scrimmage. In at least one instance, as a result of the QB's ability to audible, as many as 90% of the run plays called in a season were chosen by audible at the line of scrimmage. You might hear during the broadcast, especially if the quarterback says like alert, 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 or if they're saying kill, kill, kill. What happens is in the huddle, the quarterback will call 2 plays for the same formation they're coming out in. So let's just say the first play was a run to the right. Maybe it was a sweep. After the quarterback comes up to the line and and looks at what the defensive formation is, you might hear them say alert, 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 or kill, kill, kill. That means that they are going from the first play called in the huddle to the second play called in the huddle. One of the most famous people known for audibling at the line of scrimmage is Peyton Manning with his famous phrase, Omaha. That was Peyton Manning's call, as opposed to saying kill, 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 or alert, alert, alert. Omaha was one of Peyton Manning's great cadence to let the offense know that they were going to the second play, or sometimes Omaha, Omaha. If they called 3 plays in a row in the huddle, they could do something like that. Another important element of this offense is the inclusion of the no huddle. It's been the no huddle offense is pretty much after a play is run, the offense comes back up to the line of scrimmage to run another play very quickly. By doing so, by getting back up to the line of scrimmage very quickly and not substituting players, the first thing it does is it keeps the same defensive players on the field. It doesn't allow the defense to substitute players in the same manner they do with the huddle. So that's the first thing that it does. It keeps the same defensive players on the field. So if they're playing in a nickel package, which has 5 defensive backs, 2 linebackers, and 4 down linemen, it keeps all those people on the field at one time. This also, with the pace picking up and snapping the ball without 35 to 40 seconds between each snap, it really helps to wear down a defense and quote unquote keep them on their toes. By using the hurry up offense, it allows the team to come back if they are many points down. But like I said, it also allows them to tire up the defense, allowing for bigger runs and pass completions. And like I said, the fast pace limits the defense's ability to adjust their players and scheme. Another important aspect of the air raid offense is the split of the offensive linemen. When we talk about splits of the offensive linemen, in the NFL, you have to have 7 people on the line of scrimmage before a play is run. In the Bills game this past weekend, the Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Derek Carr threw a long, 65-yard bomb to Nelson Aguilar. There was a penalty on the play of illegal formation. That illegal formation penalty happened because they had the wide receiver to the left on the line of scrimmage, your 5 down lineman, which gives you 6, and then they had a tight end on the line of scrimmage. What happened was, on that play, there was an 8th person on the line of scrimmage because the wide receiver came up and covered him. That's an illegal formation by the rules of the NFL. That's why the flag was called. That's why the touchdown came back on that play. So that's definitely talking about that. But what happens is the splits of the offensive linemen, depending on if they're trying to run the ball or pass the ball, can be different. In a conventional offense, the linemen are fairly tight together. Usually, when I played football, it was usually you want to be a foot apart in a conventional offensive line. In terms of your splits, a half to a full yard apart, like they said. A full yard, you got to remember, is 3 feet. So in a similar way to what the West Coast offense want to do in terms of stretching the defenders from sideline to sideline, they're stretching that offensive line because that also forms what they call the pocket in football. And the pocket is the area in which the quarterback likes to operate from when passing the ball. By spreading out your offensive line, you're also spreading out your defenders. So if it is a draw play to you set up in passing formation and you hand off to the running back after a second or two to allow the play to develop and holes to open up along that offensive line. So in the air raid offense, when you're shotgun, potentially having a single back in the backfield, that spreading out of the defensive linemen allows them, after the ball is snapped, if you are handing the ball off in a draw type concept, it allows those lanes to open up quicker. In the same theory, when you're passing the ball, by having those guys spaced out, it takes longer to do their defensive line stunts. They do twists and rips and things like that along the defensive line, where maybe 2 guys go over each other, or one comes around the hole, or they shift down and one person comes all the way around to try to get the offensive line off balance. By spreading everyone out, it does make the defensive tackles and ends have to run farther to sack the quarterback because they're starting from a farther away position. And then usually to offset blitzes that usually come with the air raid offense, because it is a heavier throwing offense, and sometimes with a more vertical passing game and with longer route concepts to develop, defenses will bring pressure to blitz the quarterback in hopes of getting a sack, or to throw off the timing of the play to hopefully have the QB throw a ball that is off time, or it can get knocked down, or potentially intercepted if it was thrown too quickly. So this kind of shows some of the concepts with the air raid offense. The picture on the left is from Washington State. As you can see, this does show the two outside receivers with the two slot receivers, the quarterback in the backfield with a single back running back. We have our 5 offensive linemen across the front. And as you can see, they're kind of far apart. They're almost, if you were to move them to the center of the field and they would go from hash mark to hash mark in this picture. To the left, we see another concept of the air raid offense. But if you look at this one's actually using 2 tight ends on each side of the line. So, and it actually happens to be the quarterback is under center. This could potentially be because the play was killed, like I said at the line. He said alert, 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 that allows, or kill, kill, kill. The first play could have been a running play, and then they're optioning, or a passing play, and now they're optioning to the run play that they had, based on the fact that they only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys in the box here because they have their 2 guys. When I'm talking, and now I mentioned the box. So on the offense, you have the pocket, so to speak, for the quarterback to operate. On the defensive side of the ball, you have what is called the box. You hear this 8 men in the box, 8 men in the box, or 7 men in the box. The box is the area from tackle to tackle, and from pretty much the line of scrimmage, maybe 7 yards down the field. That is what they call the box. For like a formation like this, as you can see, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys in the box. With that guy with the circle around it, he is most likely a cornerback, but it looks like he's covering the tight end, so it brings him into that box there. As you can see with the concept that's drawn on the picture, they're running what they call 4 verticals. The reason for that is by running the vertical routes, especially with the receiver closest to the bottom of your screen, running so far out wide, is you're allowing the seams, which are pretty much, a tight end running straight from the start of his formation, are the seams of the field. So as you can see, the 2 tight ends are supposed to be running seams, with the 2 wide receivers running, I would call them more of an out and up kind of concept, where they're kind of they're running on a diagonal, and then when they kind of get toward the sidelines, they bend it upfield. But you can see that the air raid offense can be used with all receivers, or you can use it with some tight ends. Like I said, in this picture, it does look like there was an audible to potentially shift to a run based on the formation and the amount of defenders stacked in the box. Can I go to the next slide, Katie? All right. So the jet sweep. The jet sweep is something that we've been seeing a lot integrated into the Bills offense, as well as throughout the league as a whole. The jet sweep was originally designed to get the ball to the perimeter as fast as possible and let players gain extra yards along the sidelines. A perfect example of this jet sweep concept was in the Bills game on Sunday. On 4th and 1, they had Isaiah McKenzie come down the line in motion, and they handed the ball off to him, and he picked up 15 yards on 4th and 1. So usually try to get your fastest player in that position to be coming in motion down the line to take that handoff. You also see this a lot throughout the NFL, where a lot of the quarterbacks are using this jet sweep motion to get their wide receiver almost to a full sprint before the ball is snapped, and they're doing this little push pass that they're calling it, where they kind of just like drop the ball in front of them, and as the wide receiver is coming by, they are picking up passing points in fantasy football. How, I do not know, but they are anyways. So it's kind of these little push passes. If they're not going to hand the ball off to the person who's coming in that jet sweep motion, The misdirection of the motion creates a hesitation for the linebackers and gives offensive linemen better angles, which gets to the second level. When we talk about levels of the defense, you have your first level, which is the defensive linemen and tackles and ends. The second level are your linebacking cores, potentially a nickel cornerback, because they kind of play on that second level, very similar depth to where a linebacker would play. Then your third level of your defense would be your cornerbacks if they're not playing a man press, and your safeties. So you have your three levels of the defense. So by getting to the second level and using that hesitation, allows the tackles or a lead blocker, a fullback, for instance, to potentially get to the second level, sealing their blocks on linebackers or those nickelback cornerbacks to allow the run play to develop and go for longer gains. So with that motion, it's a win-win for offenses that can execute it well. After the second level defenders react to the jet motion, the backside tackle is able to make his way to the linebacker who was originally set up on the play side. So you're coming in motion, going from weak side to strong side. The initial reaction causes a tectonic shift for a defense before the play even starts, and it gives the offense a distinct advantage. And then I'll just go to the third point before I explain this. The motion before the snap of the ball with that jet sweep also allows the quarterback to see what kind of defense is being played against, man or zone, that the second and third level defenses may be in. This can allow a quarterback to attack the defense where they feel the defense is weak. You hear the Bills talk about, especially Brian Daboll, their offensive coordinator, they talk about mismatches a lot and matchups of the week and trying to expose them. What the jet sweep motion does, especially if you run it multiple times throughout a game, you get to see if you see a single man run across the field, when that wide receiver comes in motion, you know they're in man coverage. If you see the second level of that defense, or even the whole defense shift as a whole, then you know they're in zone. That allows the quarterback, while that motion's happening, to kind of say, okay, if they're in man, I can go to my matchup that we've been talking about all week. If they're in zone, that also allows me to know, okay, then I know that this player is going to be open in this area of the field. That's where I have to throw the ball. Also, and another thing about by being able to see if the defense is in man or zone, and I'm going to go back to the air raid offense real quick. Especially, we have Josh Allen as our quarterback. We love him. And if you notice that they talk about when defenses are in man, especially last year, he's been throwing very well from the pocket this year. The concepts they've been using have been great to really generate mismatches and get receivers open. But last year, we really seen this, especially when teams played the Bills in man coverage. When you're in man coverage, you're one-on-one with a receiver or a running back. What happens is during a pass play, they start running down the field. As a defender, you most likely, to a certain degree, will have your back to the quarterback. By being in man defense and having a quarterback that has the ability to run, such as Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, we're even seeing some more prototypical pocket passing quarterbacks who use these concepts and just to pick up easy yardage. Aaron Rodgers has been doing it for forever, taking what's there, especially when man coverage is there. Not the fleetest of foot person, but you got to take what that defense gives you, and especially if nothing's open and everyone has their back to, you usually have an easy gain there. So that jet sweep motion really keeps the defense off balance. It allows the quarterback to identify what defense they're in, and it really allows the offensive linemen and blockers, especially if it's a run play, to get to that second level quickly due to the fact that the angles are switching because they're moving that defensive formation. So as you can see, the picture on the left is just kind of a standstill picture. You see the dot that is filled in is our jet sweep motion person. The squiggly line represents the motion before the play, and the solid line with the arrow going up signifies the handoff to where that play wants to go. As you can see, our guards and our tackle on the backside, which is the backside is the side of the formation in which the play is going away from. Our tackle, our guard, on the backside of a play are going to the second level to hit the linebackers. Our right guard is going to the linebacker level. And as you can see, our two outside, which would most likely be a tight end or a couple wide receivers, are blocking down to seal the edge, which really the only person that this jet sweep has to beat is that corner. So this picture on the right is a Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears game. That's Alshon Jeffrey going in motion, as you can see. It's not playing, but as you can see, he's coming up behind the quarterback in order to be handed off. Or this could also just be a motion, because as you can see, there's there's a tight end on that side of the formation. This could also just be to see if they're in a man set or a zone set by shifting him from one side of the field to the other prior to the snap. Okay, so, go ahead, Katie.
Sorry. I want to start this in saying there are no silly questions here, but this question, this is probably an elementary question. I understand the difference between man and zone defense, but how can the quarterback tell just by how the defense is lined up?
Okay, so if the if there's no motion before a play, the quarterback might not know specifically if they're in zone or man coverage. You hear about the scouting report when football analysts and stuff talk like that for the week. And a lot of the times during the scouting report, your scouts are looking at teams you're playing down the road. And what they'll do is they'll look at prior game film to see what tendencies a team likes to play in. I know when Sean McDermott was in Carolina, he relied more on a zone type of defense where his defenders defend areas as opposed to playing man. So without motion, it's hard for a quarterback to know what's going on in terms of that. But using that jet sweep motion or any motion in general, even if it's you'll see like a tight end like back up from the line of scrimmage, go to the center and then come back to the same spot. That little motion right there is not a jet sweep, but they're using that motion on that tight end to see if a linebacker is following him or if a safety is following him. If that person kind of moves with him, you know you're in a man defense. Especially if you're taking a wide receiver or someone from one side of the field to another side of the field, if you just see the defense shift, then you know they're in zone. If you see one person follow that receiver, then you know they're in a man coverage set. So without movement, you wouldn't know other than based on your team's scouting report of the team you're playing. But with those motions, even if they're small, even if it's something as simple as just like Devin Singletary motioning him out from the backfield to the flank, which is the farthest part of the field away from the quarterback in the line of scrimmage. Like even that little motion will show you if a linebacker runs out with him, they're in man. But if they kind of shift everyone over, maybe a safety moves over and then the linebacker comes onto the tight end on that side, then you know they're in zone. So without motion, harder to know. You have to go based on your scouting report, but with the motion, it does allow that quarterback to kind of see whether one person's traveling or the whole defense is shifting to say whether it's man or zone. Good. So the run pass option. The run pass option has become widely used in both college and professional football. The quarterback makes a decision whether to hand off the ball to the running back, keep the ball themselves and run, or pass the ball based on the movement of a single defender, usually a linebacker or safety. If the quarterback reads the targeted defender as defending the run, he will pass. If the read is the defender stays put or appears to defend the pass, the quarterback hands off the ball. The idea is to have one fewer defender defending a run or pass play. Receivers will still run routes, not blocking for the runner, and the offensive line will still block like it's a running play, not pass protecting, regardless of the quarterback's ultimate decision. I want to say that we really saw this offense start becoming prevalent when Robert Griffin III was drafted by the Washington Redskins. Being a dynamic runner himself, also with a pretty great arm, Coach Mike Shanahan really focused on maximizing the offense's ability to put defenders in bad positions. What I mean by that is when you're playing an offense such as that old Redskins team, definitely the Baltimore Ravens is probably the most current team that uses probably the most heavy run pass option type of style within the NFL right now. What that does is, if you put a linebacker or a defensive end, what happens is by making your quarterback a potential runner on every play, you technically only have one person to beat, and that's that person who that quarterback's keying on for that play. Like I said, most likely it's a linebacker. If the linebacker freezes in place, he might hand the ball off. If the linebacker comes down to stop the run, they might throw right behind where that linebacker is supposed to be on that play. With that being said, by having 10 blockers on a play, as opposed to a regular run play that only has 9 because the quarterback hands the ball off and is done for the play, that run pass option really allows the offense to make the defense commit one way or the other, but it also makes the offense or the defense stay honest by making sure that, as the Bills always say, doing their 1/11th. There's 11 guys on the field at a time. If you take care of your job, everything should fall in line. You shouldn't start trying to do something for someone else. But that run pass option really, really puts the stress on that defender who is the person they're targeting in that week. If they're running a 4-3, it's probably a linebacker. If they're running a 3-4, it may be a defensive, or they're technically a linebacker, but they play more up on the line of scrimmage, more like a defensive end. So depending on their formations and what they usually run, advanced scouting will say this is the person that we should target with these concepts and schemes. Here's just a couple examples of that. On the left-hand side, it has the diagram where we're looking at, so we have the running back going out to a fake handoff going to the left. The QB's read option, if he keeps it, is to come off the right end. You have a tight end pop. So that linebacker on the second level here, if he attacks the run, that like I said, if that linebacker who's closest to my arrow comes down to stop the run, whether it's to come to the left to stop the running back that's going out to the left-hand side, if it's to come, and really they're targeting that linebacker, because if that QB comes and starts to run like he's going to run the ball to the right here, that linebacker is most likely going to step up. That tight end is running right to the vacant area in which that linebacker is supposed to be covering. If that linebacker doesn't come down the field to stop that run, you see we have this wide receiver bubble screen coming out the backside of this play. I'm trying to see if this is the Bills. This actually might be the Bills that's actually on the screen. I didn't even notice. But that wide receiver is going to come down, block that nickel cornerback, and then it's one-on-one on the outside if the tight end is covered and he decides not to hand that ball off. Now, the picture on the right, we're reading a totally different player based on the scheme of the defense. As you can see, you have a 1 technique or a 3 technique. In a 3-4 defense, you're most likely going to have your nose tackle be a 1 technique. He sets the line of scrimmage right on top of the center, maybe shading one way or another depending on preference, but they always line up over the center. In a 4-3, they use a 3 technique, which lines up over the guard. So in this specific one to our right, it looks like they're keying on what this 3 technique is doing in order to either execute a run up the middle or potentially have this quarterback take this ball outside or throw it. Now that brings us to the catch rule. When I was a kid, it was 2 feet down in bounds, possession, and what they call a quote unquote football move. Since the Dez Bryant catch on the goal line versus the Green Bay Packers about 5 years ago, we still don't really know what a catch is. The league moved to establish the parameters for a catch before the 2017 season, but it still seems to be a question left unanswered weekly around the league. Like I said, 2 feet down in bounds, clear possession, maintained through the ground, and or a football move were the elements that were clearly defined as aspects of the catch and are what should be established to rule the reception as a catch. So like I said, the one thing that was added was this this possession maintained through the ground. You will see that a lot of times, especially catches that are being made at the sideline, when someone's trying to tap their feet down and bounce, when that receiver has possession but comes to the ground, if the ball is to move or jostle, it could. So I come down, I hit the ground, the ball comes out of my hands, but I re-grab it. Technically, that is not a catch. We see it all the time. We see challenge flags thrown. We see something ruled a touchdown on the field. Then it comes back and it's overturned, like the John Brown catch last week. That was a catch. He has possession over the threshold of the end zone. Because if you didn't know, the whole ball does not have to cross the threshold of the white mark, the white line that starts the end zone. Literally, the nose of the ball has to just graze that line for it to be counted a score. Last week's game, Josh Allen threw a rope to John Brown at the goal line. John Brown had his hands inside the end zone, past the white line. When he gained possession, it was on the white line, and they said because he was coming back through the plane toward the field of play, it was ruled a reception down at the half-yard line. It's nonsense. It was a touchdown. He was robbed 6 points, as was my fiance's fantasy team. That's the catch rule. As we can see, Dez Bryant had 2 feet down. Technically, as soon as that elbow is down, he's down. But what happened was, and technically the ground can't force a fumble either. So when his elbow hits, he's down. Whatever happened to that ball after that play, when that ball hit the ground, should not have counted because he was already technically down. This is really where that really got highlighted in terms of what's a catch, what's not a catch. I know throughout that whole season, people were really, really questioning why or what or how. And I know last year we had the ability to challenge defensive pass interference. I really think the league, personally, I think the league really did a disservice by not really upholding a lot of the things that were challenged. I remember during the Bills-Ravens games last season, as I am a season ticket holder, I was at the stadium. Robert Foster's running open down the field. Josh Allen throws a bomb to him, and the safety who was covering him literally mugs him before he gets the ball, and they called it incomplete. They cut to commercial afterward because Sean McDermott challenged the call on the field, and he pretty much marched out almost to the hash marks of the field yelling at the refs, and it was called, it was ruled incomplete pass. So hopefully they're cleaning that up. It seems to be better this year in terms of the grounds of a catch and what is a catch. It seems to they've been able to iron it out. I know that they are using full-time referees now as opposed to part-time referees, which should have been done before. I think by using full-time referees, it really does allow them to see and break down some of the issues of each week and see where calls were made that shouldn't have been made and really help to clarify rules and statutes and things that are going on each week throughout the game. But with that being said, I am open for any questions that we have, as we do have about 15 minutes left. So please ask me any questions. If you have questions on lingo or terminology or defenses, we can start now. I was thinking about doing a 301 that talked about defensive schemes and coverages. But yeah, Katie, if anyone has questions, please let me know.
Yeah. So you answered the first part of this, which was what was your opinion about the big overturned catch. But the second part is, what about that bogus interception the week before? What are your thoughts?
Oh, that was a total miss by the NFL. I, for one, am not a fan of Al Riveron, who is the head of officiating and who is the person who helps review the plays in New York City, who converses with the officials who are in the game. As you can see, what happens is as our tight end, Tyler Kroft, establishes possession of the catch, he brings it into his body. And as they fall to the ground, it seems like the Los Angeles Rams defender then goes to attack the ball and grab it. The rule in football is very similar to the rule in baseball, that the tie goes to the runner. In terms of football, dual possession, the tie goes to the offense. So in my opinion, the league got that wrong. In my opinion, Josh Allen does not have any interceptions on the season. But 2 fumbles, he's got to clean that up.
Thank you, sir. We're having yes, do 301. So we'll put that on the book. I'm not seeing anything yet, but we can wait a couple seconds. Any questions? Again, they're not silly, they're not elementary. We're all learning here together. I have a silly question while people are typing in. Oh, here we go. What is the function of the safety?
Are we talking about the safety as a position or a safety as in the scoring play?
Can we do both?
Sure. So in a defense, you do have a safety or 2 safeties. You have a strong safety and a free safety. The sole function of the safety is not to let anything get behind them. That is one of the sole functions of the safety, is they are the last line of defense of the defense, and they should not allow anyone to get behind them. I would say that the Bills have one of the most underrated tandems of safeties in the NFL with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. The reason I say that is they do a great job of disguising what coverages they are in before every single play. Bill Belichick has said it. Multiple coaches have said and complimented the Bills' safeties due to the fact that they disguise stuff so well. They play very well together. So when you have they do have designations of strong safety and free safety. The strong safety is more or less your safety who is going to potentially be the person who is going to be in coverage more often, most likely covering a potentially a tight end, or if they go to 4 or 5 receiver sets, they may be the first person to step up in coverage of the odd number of receivers or weapons that are out there for the offense. Also, the strong safety is more likely to come down in run support, potentially playing in that box that we spoke about earlier to be adding to making that 8-man box. But I would say Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde kind of do both. I would say the last real strong safety the Bills had in terms of that run stopping, more of a defensive person, was Dante Whitner. Dante Whitner really liked to come up and stop the run. He was a hard-hitting safety, would play a lot of man coverage on tight ends. So that's what a strong safety is. Your free safety is more of your ball hawk. Your free safety is more of your center fielder in the back of the defense, who is your last line of defense. Nothing should ever get behind your free safety. So you will hear them, and we'll get into this more if I do 301. You'll hear about Tampa 2. You'll hear about cover 2, cover 3, quarters coverage. Cover 2 is talking about the safeties. Cover 2 says that your safeties who are starting let's just say they're starting 12 yards off from the line of scrimmage is where they set up. Those two safeties each have half of the field down the field. Let's say they start at 10 to 12 yards on the field. Between 25 and 30 yards down the field is what you're playing cover two. You have two safeties covering the field. You might hear of cover three, where you have two safeties and maybe a dime or a nickel cornerback covering the field in thirds. Quarters coverage, you have four defensive backs in coverage, two of them being safeties, most likely two of them being cornerbacks, and they each quarter a deep cover quarter of the field. So safeties, to answer it shortly, are the last line of defense of the defense, but they do each have a role within the defense. And Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer do a great job of switching that role depending on the strength side of the offense. Usually, like I said, the strength side of the offense is most likely the side that has more players on it for a specific play. That also a lot has to do is like you know that they have the hash marks in football. If a play goes outside of the hash mark to the right or to the left, the ball always gets placed on the hash mark. If the offensive player is tackled within the hash marks, the ball is placed where the defender went down. So depending on the side of the field and how the offensive formation stacks each side of the field, you'll have your weak and strong side. And depending on who's playing that side of the field, you may see Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde come down and switch roles based on the formations.
And then the play?
Okay, so then the play. So when an offense starts with the ball near the goal line, what happens is that the ball is snapped from, let's just say, the 1 yard line. The quarterback then has the ball in the end zone. So the ball has started outside of the goal line. The ball is snapped. It's inside of the end zone they're defending. When a quarterback ball carrier is tackled inside of that end zone, when the ball is snapped outside of it, it is known as a safety. The defense gets 2 points. Then the team who was on offense then has to come back out and punt the ball back to the defense. So a safety doesn't happen very often. It actually happened a couple times. I think it might have been Minnesota or someone had two safeties in back-to-back weeks. It was the first time it happened in like 30 years or something like that. But a safety, a scoring play is when the offense is backed up in their own zone, the play gets into the end zone, and then the quarterback or the ball carrier is tackled, resulting in 2 points and the ball.
Thank you. We'll see if there's any other questions that are coming in, but my question was, is it typical for teams to switch offenses during the game, or are they normally dominated by one type?
I could say you may see multiple offenses used, multiple concepts used throughout the game. I want to say it was week 1 against the Jets. The Bills use a lot of run pass option. The New York Jets have a very, very stout defensive line, and they have a very good run stopping defensive line. By using the run pass option, which I do believe Josh Allen should have handed the ball off a little bit more week 1, due to the fact that the defenders were more keying on him, and that I think that there were some running lanes that were open that he just didn't allow the running backs to use. We've seen a lot of RPO week 1. It was sprinkled in there week 2, but week 3 we really saw the offense change to more of that air raid offense, where the Bills are actually using the most 4 wide receiver sets in the NFL right now. Whereas in last year, they used the most 11 personnel, which means 1 running back, 1 tight end. You'll hear 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end. You might hear 12 personnel, which is 1 running back, 2 tight ends. You might hear 21 personnel, which might be 2 running backs and a tight end. You might hear 10 personnel, which is a running back and no tight ends, which is most likely what the Bills are running a lot of that air raid offense. Our air raid offense right now is really consisting of Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley, and then Gabriel Davis and Isaiah McKenzie, and a little bit of Andre Roberts have been sprinkled in there as that 4th wideout for that air raid offense. And depending on the coverage schemes, I want to say that week week 3 against the Rams, week 2 against the Dolphins play a lot of man coverage. So if you looked at the routes that the Bills were running on week 2 against Miami, they were running a lot of deep crossing routes. And the reason for that is in man coverage, the longer the route, the more likely it is that the defender loses a step. Also, by running crossing routes, it causes those rubs and those picks that I talked about earlier that makes a defender have to kind of take extra steps to get back to the offensive player that they're covering, which especially they're called man beater concepts, zone beater concepts. The rubs and man and those deep crosses that they were running, and I believe Gabriel Davis had one, Cole Beasley had one. I know Stephon Diggs. They each were having these deep crossing patterns. I'm pretty sure Stephon Diggs caught a deep crossing pattern for a touchdown that we got blacked out here in Buffalo during that game. It was a 22-yard touchdown score. But that was also another deep crossing route that he was wide open on. So that was man. Against the Rams, who play a lot of zone, they used a lot more comebacks in some of their route running, and they really attacked the areas of the field as opposed to specific players. The rub routes and things like that do work for zone, especially if you're going to use tighter formations when the receivers are aligned. Like I know we talked about that trips formation where everyone's very closely aligned. When you're using those formations and bunching up those defenders in a small area, especially in zone, if someone's covering a flat or a middle or a deeper portion of side of the field, if you have to be bunched up together on those wide receivers and you have to cover, maybe if you were in man, you'd have a little bit more space. But when you're bunching everyone up and you're kind of running the formations to kind of maybe 2 one way and 1 coming underneath, it really kind of bottles up those defenders. And so depending on the week and depending on the scouting that's done, you will definitely switch your game plan and how you want to attack the defense, especially if you can find a weakness in it. So from week to week and from team to team, you will see the Bills switch how they are going to operate that offense. Like I said, week 1, we did a lot of RPO. We've seen a lot more open sets and a lot more of the air raid come in the last few weeks.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for the very thorough answer. I feel like I should get out on the field and start running some routes. We'll do a University Express flag football team or something.
Yeah, that's right. Each site has their own.
Yes, we'll have our own little, what is the word I'm looking for? Game. Oh, sorry, I'm just trying to read this comment. Great job, Brian. Thank you. I learned a lot. I'm going to go back and look for the catch rule for Des Bryant. All right. Well, I think that concludes our presentation. Great class. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, as always, for your passion, your excitement, and then for everyone who joined in. I did have a question about recording this. Again, and we are recording. I'll try to post it this afternoon when it's generated. And if you have any ideas, anything you want covered in 301 or whatever, please send them to me, and I'll talk with Ryan to see if there's something he's able to cover for us. So I hope everyone has a really great day.
Thank you, guys. Go Bills.
Go Bills.